Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to be doing an introduction to a brand new unit. We're going to be looking at a circle, so switching gears from parallelograms and triangles. We're going to be looking at a circle, and specifically today, we're going to be learning about writing the equation of a circle. So you guys have been able to write the equation of a line and graph a line, especially from algebra, but now in geometry, we're going to learn how to write the equation of a circle and how to go from the equation to actually graphing it. So before we do that, let's just go over some preliminary vocabulary. Here's a circle. So the center would be A. You would have specific coordinates. And the radius goes from the center to a point on the circle. Okay? The radius can be diagonal. The radius could be straight. So this would also be a radius. Okay? And going from the center straight vertically, this would also be a radius. What's very important to know about the radius is that the distance from the center to the endpoint anywhere in the circle is the exact same length. So this distance is the same as this distance. It's the same as this distance. That's why the circle center point is called the center, because from that point, every endpoint is the exact same distance away. Another good thing to know is if you have a radius and you have another radius, two radii together make what is called, you may have heard this before, a diameter. So two radii together make a diameter. And that would be going from one endpoint of a circle to another endpoint of the circle. So right now the important vocabulary to know is the center, that's the coordinates of the dot directly in the middle. The radius, that goes from the center point to an end point on the circle. And then the final one that matters would be the diameter. It goes end point to end point. Okay? And the important thing about the diameter is it must pass through the center. Okay, so if I drew a line and it was like this, that would not be the diameter because it doesn't pass through the center of the circle. That has a different term, but we'll learn about that later on. So we're going to do this a little bit backwards. I'm going to have you first look at the equations of circles already written, and from there try to make sense of the format of the equation. I feel like it's better to look at an example because from there we can piece together what these components are really talking about. So looking at this equation, it's x minus 4 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 4. Looks rather complicated, but we're going to break it down and it'll get a lot simpler. So this is our circle. Here's the center. We're going to identify the radius. The radius is 2 units. So when I go from the center to the end of the circle, it's 2. If I count it this way, it's 2. This way it's 2, or down it's 2. Any direction. So your radius is 2 units. And let's get the coordinates of the center point. So our center is 4, negative 2. Okay? Notice some of these numbers are coming from here. We're going to piece together how that comes from the equation. Maybe now you could start to get a little bit of an idea from looking at this. And maybe from another example, you'll start to make a pattern out of it. All right, let's get the radius in this picture. So radius would be 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Let's get the coordinate of the center. This is negative 2, negative 1. All right. So let's see if we notice anything. So in this problem, our center was 4, negative 2, and the equation was minus 4 and 2. In this problem, our center is negative 2, negative 1, and the equation was 2 and 1. So hopefully you're noticing in the equation, it takes on the opposite signs of the center. So if this is a negative 2, you're going to have a plus in here. If this is a -1, you're going to have a plus in here. If your center is +4 for your x-coordinate, it's going to have a negative in here. If your center has -2 for y, it's going to have a positive. So this represents the coordinates of your center, and it takes on the opposite sign. Same with here. This is the coordinates of your center, but it takes on the opposite sign. Now here, our radius was 2, but what's over here is 4. This is the radius squared. 2 squared, or 2 times 2, is 4. Here, it's also r squared. Here, our radius is 4, so 4 squared, or 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay? So in general, the way the equation of a circle is written is you take the coordinates of the center point, you put the opposite signs in here, you take the length of the radius, and you square it. So the equation of a circle with center HK, so if h was your x-coordinate, k was your y-coordinate, and your radius was r, it'd be of the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So once again in here, you put the opposite sign of the x-coordinate for the center. Okay, the reason why it's opposite is because the formula is a negative. So for instance, if you had a -4 for x, it would be x minus -4, which becomes a plus. So it's just easier to memorize. You're going to take the opposite sign of the x-coordinate for the center. Okay, and then for this portion, it would be the opposite sign of the y-coordinate for the center. So again, it's a center point. This time it's talking about y, opposite coordinate, opposite sign. And then it's your radius squared. What is the equation of the circle passing through the point -5, -2, whose center is at -2, 3? So it's nice to draw a little diagram. You have a circle. Our center is -2, 3. And on our circle, we have the point -5, -2. So either the circle passes through it or that point is on it. So somewhere over here, you have -5, -2. And we want to write the equation. Remember, the equation is going to be in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the important pieces we need for this equation is we need the center and we need the radius. We already got the center, so we're good to go with that. Our center is going to be the opposite sign of our x. So if our x is -2, I'm going to put a +2 in here. The opposite sign for our y, so I'm going to have y minus 3. And now we need the length of the radius. I want to know what's the distance from the center to an endpoint on the circle. So since we have the coordinates of the center, we have the coordinates of an endpoint, we need that distance. Let's bring it back again. What formula helps us find the distance or the length of something? The distance formula. So d equals the square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So I'm going to make this x1, y1, x2, and y2. So it's going to be -2 minus -5 squared plus 3 minus -2 squared. -2 minus -5, this is going to become a plus. So -2 plus 5 is going to be 3 squared. This double negative will be a plus. 3 plus 2, 5. 3 squared is 9. 5 squared is 25. 9 plus 25 is radical 34. You have a radical, don't be alarmed. So our formula is r squared. This is just the length of the radius. So if I take a radical and I square it, that's a radical times a radical. So put that in your calculator and see what you get. It's going to be just 34, because anytime you square a radical, it just drops the radical sign. So this is really just 34. And so overall my equation is x plus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 34. The coordinates of the endpoints of the diameter of a circle are 2, 0 and 2, negative 8. What is the equation of the circle? Again, let's draw a diagram to try to help us. All right, so we have a circle. We have the coordinates of the endpoints of the diameter. Remember, the diameter goes from one end of the circle to the other end of the circle, and it passes through the center. So since we have the endpoints this time, I could put, let's say, 2, 0 here and 2, negative 8 here. I don't know the coordinates of this point. All right, so this time I need the center. I don't have it. And besides the center, I need the radius. I need the length from the center to the end. Well, I can't find the radius because I can't get the distance from the center to the end point if I don't know what the center is. So my first step is going to be to find the center. You know the center is directly in the middle, okay? Out of your three formulas that you know, distance, midpoint, and slope, which one talks about something in the middle? Midpoint. So I'm going to use midpoint formula to do this. So I'm going to get the midpoint from this coordinate to this coordinate. The midpoint formula, recall, is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. So this is going to be 2 plus 2 over 2, 0 plus negative 8 over 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 0 plus negative 8 is negative 8. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. This is the midpoint. This is the coordinates of the center. Now that I know the coordinates of the center, I can go ahead and try to find the radius. The radius is the distance from the center to an endpoint. So I can get the distance from this point to this point. I could go center to this end, or I can go center to this end. It doesn't matter as long as you include one endpoint and one center point. So step 2, I'm going to find the radius. And I might as well use these 2 points. So 2, 0 and 2, negative 4. And I'm going to use the distance formula. So it's going to be 2 minus 2 squared plus negative 4 minus 0 squared. 2 minus 2 is 0, so this is 0 squared. Negative 4 minus 0 is negative 4 squared. So this is just gone. 4 squared is going to be the same as negative 4 squared, so it's going to be 16. The square root of 16 is 4. This is our radius. So now that I know the center and I know the radius, I can put it in the equation to finish up the problem. I need the opposite sign for the coordinates of my center. So since the 2 is positive, it's going to be x minus 2 squared. Since the 4 is negative, it's going to be y plus 4 squared. And my radius squared, so equals 4 squared. Simplify this. What is 4 squared? 16. Hopefully this introduction to the equations of circles makes sense. I'll be making another video with this, and I'll be providing you guys with some practice problems.